Hello, and thank you for joining me. My name is Rachel Barnett, and I'm the owner of a company called Gentle Frog. I'm here to present small business bookkeeping and QuickBooks Online basics. I've pre-recorded this session just in case of internet issues or something else, but I am going to be available within the chat system. So if you have questions as this presentation goes along, please ask them in chat. I'm definitely here. Before we get started, I'd like to give you some information about myself just so you can get to know me and a little bit about my history. I've been a bookkeeper since 1995 and self-employed since 2012. My business is located in Bellevue, but sometimes you'll find me sneaking over east of the mountains to Leavenworth. I'm the proud parent of 2 cactuses. I assemble jigsaw puzzles for fun, and I like to volunteer. That's why I'm here. My goal for this seminar is to provide small business owners and managers and their accountants a brief overview of accounting and QuickBooks Online. This won't be a deep dive, but I want you to feel slightly more comfortable and slightly more confident. I'm also going to provide you a PDF with a bunch of how-to guides and how-do-I guides. Over the years, I've written out instructions on how to perform common tasks within QuickBooks Online. So I'm going to get those to you because I think it might be helpful, and if it's not, no big deal. This seminar is intended for people who have little to no accounting or bookkeeping or QuickBooks Online experience. Again, the goal of this is to give you information, kind of show you around, introduce you to bookkeeping itself, introduce you to QuickBooks Online, and just help you feel a little bit more comfortable. So you're not going to come away knowing how to be a bookkeeper, but hopefully you'll come away thinking, I can do this. As I said earlier, this workshop is being pre-recorded. I'm doing that on purpose just in case there's any sort of internet issues on my side. Because it's pre-recorded, that means that I can fully and completely focus on the chat box. I think that seminars like this are a lot more interesting if there's audience participation. So please don't hesitate to reach out with your questions. Right now, some of you are using accounting software for your bookkeeping, and that's fantastic. Some of you are using something else such as an Excel document or paper records, and that's also okay. Some of you aren't doing anything and it's just a box in the corner and you deal with it maybe once a year and it kind of looks like a puzzle where you have to figure out what happened. There's nothing really wrong with all these, but there's nothing really right with it either. The reason that you want to have some sort of accounting software to help you keep track of things is so that you're always organized. I want you to always know where you stand financially. So if we take a look at this graph of coins, right? You've got a pile of coins, and that's great. But unless the coins are organized, you don't know if they're increasing or if they're decreasing. When it's time to file and pay your taxes, you need to have your coins organized. If you need to apply for a loan, you need to have your coins organized. There's basically no getting around to having your records organized, and the question then just becomes, how are you going to do it? I recommend using an accounting software. It doesn't matter to me what accounting software you use, there's a ton of really great options. For this seminar, I'm only going to be discussing QuickBooks Online, but if you need help or recommendations, I am going to provide a handout that includes links for other accounting softwares, so you can kind of look around and see which one might be the best one for you. Don't worry about which one gets the best reviews, or which one your cousin likes the best, or that your neighbor likes the best, or your dog raves about. Really think about, what are you going to use? Because I tell you what, I've got all kinds of fruits and vegetables in my fridge, but I'm not using them. So I just want you to think about, what are you really going to use? Because I'm going to talk to you about QuickBooks Online, I want to start and just let you know a little bit about QuickBooks Online. It's a web-based product, it's a monthly subscription, it's backed up in the cloud, and it's extremely secure. When you're considering if you want to use QuickBooks Online, one of the questions you're going to have is how much does it cost? And what you might do is exactly what I've done here. You might Google QuickBooks Online pricing, and then you'll see these different editions. I want to start by showing you a couple of things. I really want you to know that the freelancer edition over here to the right, while it has an affordable and attractive price tag, It's not a good product for any small business at all. So I strongly discourage anyone from getting this product. One of my biggest problems with the product is that it does not provide all the standard accounting reports that we're going to discuss in today's seminar. The other problem that I have with Freelancer Edition is that you can never upgrade it or migrate it to a small business edition. So if you decide that you would rather have one of these other products, that's fantastic. You get to throw away all of your work. Because it's not set up the same on the back end, it can never ever be migrated into one of these. Okay, that's the end of my discussion on Freelancer. When you look at this, it seems like there's kind of a big jump, right? Simple Start is $25 a month, and the Plus Edition is $70 a month, and there's nothing in between. Well, that's not true. And because Intuit is constantly doing A/B testing, whether you see this screen or something else, it'll just vary. It's a flip of a coin. So I pulled up a different page because I really wanted you to see the options. So this page, it's on the Intuit blog. It talks about the Self-Employed Edition. It talks about Simple Start. We'll just flip back for a second. Simple Start being the $25 a month. So I know you see this $12.50, and in case you're curious, that's the 50% off for 3 months. Then it goes to $25 a month. After Simple Start, there's a product called Essentials. Essentials doesn't show up on the screen because they're A/B testing. Essentials is a product that is available, and it's a good product. Essentials is $40 a month. After Essentials, there's Plus at $70 a month, and then there's Advanced at $150 a month. When you're trying to decide which product is the best product for you, feel free to do internet research, reach out to me, whatever it takes. But don't get talked into something that you don't think is the best product for you. Don't worry about the fact that the Plus is the most popular. Don't worry about it if you hop onto chat down here and they suggest Advanced for your business. That unfortunately gets recommended quite a bit, and I think that the people in Intuit who are recommending it must get commission. My primary client is the small, tiny, do-it-yourself business owner. Most of the time, they don't need all these extra bells and whistles. And they certainly don't need and often can't afford $150 a month for software. I encourage you to take a look and kind of just see which one makes sense for you, and also to recognize that you're not locked into anything. So if you subscribe to something and you say that's good or that's bad, you can move it up or down as long as you don't pick the self-employed version. Later in the seminar, we're going to use the QuickBooks Online sample file. The sample file uses the Plus edition of the software. It's really like some of these extra bells and whistles we're just not really going to cover, so don't worry about it. If you like what you see in the sample file, then again, just take a look at the different plan options and pick the plan that makes sense for you. If you're not sure, I'm happy to have a chat with you. I don't make a commission. It doesn't matter to me what you pick. But I want you to know the differences, and I want you to feel comfortable, and I don't want you to spend more than you need to. So that's these 2 pages here, and just letting you know why what I see is different than what you see, and that's because of A/B testing. Let me briefly explain to you the differences between these products so that you have a good sense of what they offer and what might make sense for you. You still may need to do extra research, but at least this gives you a jumping off point. Simple Start is a product that is $25 a month after that initial discount. It gives you 1 user plus the ability to add 2 accounting firms. With Simple Start, you can track your income, so things like invoices and sales receipts and all that good stuff. And you can track your expenses, so you spent cash or used the debit card or used the credit card, all that. You can generate reports such as the profit and loss, also known as the income statement, the balance sheet, an accounts receivable summary so you can see who owes you money. You can really do all the things that a small business might need to do. If we move on from Simple Start to Essentials, I want to let you know what the difference is there and the things that come with Essentials that you don't get with Simple Start. Essentials is $40 a month. It'll give you 3 users plus 2 accounting firms instead of 1 user plus 2 accounting firms. It'll give you the ability to manage and pay bills. What that means is that you can tell your accounting software to keep track of the bills where you owe money to somebody, and you want your accounting software to let you know who you owe money to, and then you can log that you've made that payment. So for many of us, we don't need the accounting software to keep track of our bills that we need to pay. It's either on auto pay or it's so infrequent we just know to pay it. But for larger businesses where there's a lot coming and going, they need to have an accounts payable department, and that might just be you on a Monday morning, you've suddenly become your own accounts payable department. You would need to use Essentials or a grader to be able to track those bills in QuickBooks. Your alternative is just once the bills are paid, you can log it. Hey, I wrote a check, I used my credit card. And then that puts you back to, you can use Simple Start, Essentials, Plus, Advanced, anything you want. So Essentials lets you do that. Essentials also lets you track your time. There are other ways to track your time. You're probably using something right now. And if you're not, it's easy to find something. But if you wanted to use the time tracking module built into QuickBooks, you would need to use Essentials. Now we're on to Plus. So Plus is $70 a month. It comes with all the features of Simple Start, all the features of Essentials, and a handful of other features to kind of make it more attractive. So for that $70 a month, you can have 5 users plus 2 accounting firms. You can track project profitability. So what that means is you can say, I'm working on a home remodel or a kitchen remodel project, or I'm working on an ad campaign for a client. And you can say, here's the money I've collected to do this. And here's the money I've spent to make that happen. Like I bought materials from Home Depot, or I bought ads from Google and Facebook, all that good stuff. And so within Plus, you can say, all right, I want to know how profitable each of these projects that I was doing were. In addition to being able to track the profitability of projects, QuickBooks Online Plus will give you the ability to have inventory built into your QuickBooks software. If you're a person who needs inventory, take a look at it and see if it's the right fit for you. And if it's not the right fit, then I would recommend looking at one other thing. QuickBooks Online is kind of like a base Lego set where you're able to do a lot of cool stuff. But if you want to do even more cool stuff, you have to go get something that adds on to the QuickBooks Online. The way to get to that list of add-on stuff is to go to the website apps.com, apps.com. Once you're there, you can see all the software that integrates and is vetted to integrate with QuickBooks Online. So in the example of inventory, if you look at what's offered within the QuickBooks Online and you say, that's great, but I really need this other thing, whatever that thing is, there's a strong likelihood that that exists in one of these 75 add-on apps. If you choose one of these add-on apps, you can integrate it to Simple Start, Essentials, Plus, Advanced. You don't need to have one of the higher or more costly versions of QuickBooks Online to use the apps. And there's more apps than just inventory. I pulled this up as an example because I like it as an example. So the last thing I want to talk to you about is QuickBooks Online Advanced. QuickBooks Online Advanced is $150 a month. And for that $150 a month, you get all the benefits of the previous editions that we've already discussed. You also get things such as business analytics and insights, batch invoicing and expenses. You can automate your workflows, and you can create custom user roles. QuickBooks Online Advanced lets you have up to 25 users plus 2 accounting firms. So when I say you can customize the roles, you can say, all right, one person only gets access to this tiny sliver of QuickBooks and they don't get to see anything else. And someone else can get a different tiny sliver and they can't see anything else. So as your business grows, you might need to compartmentalize and say you can do this, but you shouldn't see anything else, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. I don't have a lot of experience with QuickBooks Online Advanced. If you think this is a product you might need, no problem. I can help you find someone who knows it really well. It's just not me. Before we dive into the QuickBooks Online, I just want to let you know that QuickBooks Online, as it sounds, is available through your web browser, but it's also available through your phone. So you can use any type of computer, Mac or Windows, and any type of phone. So if you have an Android device or an iPhone, no problem. You can use the browser where you go to the QuickBooks Online website, or you can use the app where you download an app to either your phone or your computer. For myself, I use the browser for everything. As you can see, I'm in incognito. I actually work with my QuickBooks Online in incognito, so I never have to clear my cache and my cookies. It works best, or it's optimized for Chrome. And then in Rachel land, I feel like it works better in incognito. let's jump over to QuickBooks Online so that I can show you around and start explaining accounting concepts and then how to perform functions within QuickBooks Online. What I want you to see, and everybody can do this and everybody can get to this, and this is really, really fantastic. I just love that it exists. You can search the term QuickBooks Online Test Drive. And when you do that, it's going to pull up this link, or hopefully near the top, it should pull up this link. It says qbo.intuit.com/reader for redirect/test drive. And so what this is this is just the sample file. And every time you close the browser, your sample file resets. So if I'm working on this and you're working on it, you don't see what I'm doing, and I don't see what you're doing. What I like about it is that if I want to experiment with something, or if I want to see if an idea works, I can come over here and test that idea, and it doesn't mess up my actual QuickBooks file. If I'm teaching someone how to use QuickBooks, even if they already have it set up, I'll often go into the test drive file, because then we can experiment with things, and if we make a big mistake, no big deal. And we can learn by repetition. So everything that you see me do in this video, you'll be able to go recreate, because I'm using the same sample file you'll have access to. So again, it's QuickBooks Online Test Drive, and you're just looking for something with the word test drive in the title, and click on it. So now we're in the sample file. The sample file has the setup guide at the top. I just click hide because it's in my way and I want to show you other stuff. I'm really not going to show you everything that you see here. When you log in, if you choose to log into the sample file, you can play around with any of this. You're not going to hurt a thing. So for the sample file, we know we're in the sample because it's the sample in the upper left-hand corner. And then it tells us our business name. Our business name is Craig's Design and Landscape Services, which is fantastic. I'm thrilled to be a landscaper, although if you looked at my yard, you would have no idea that I'm secretly a landscaper. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about accounting stuff, and I'm just going to use this file as my tool instead of making up stuff and trying to show you a PDF that I pulled out of thin air. Once I've done that, I'm going to go back and show you how to perform common tasks. So if you're considering using QuickBooks Online, or if you're already using QuickBooks Online, I want you to come away with this knowing how to do some things. So let's talk about your financials. There's a whole pile of really good financials to look at. I want to focus on three. I want to focus on the balance sheet, the profit and loss, and the accounts receivable report. I want you to know how to get to them and what they're telling you. So within QuickBooks Online, and really within any accounting software, you're just looking for the word reports. And once you find reports, that's going to be your starting point. So to get there in QuickBooks Online, you click on the word reports on the left-hand side of your screen. That's going to bring up a new screen in the middle. Now the left-hand side, that's just a static menu that stays put no matter what, which is fantastic. At the top of our list of reports is our favorite reports. So these are the ones we bookmarked. Now, you and I, we didn't really bookmark these, but we're going to pretend. When they set up the sample company file, they put in some data and they bookmarked some reports, and they kind of just made it ready for us to learn, which is great. I'm going to pick the balance sheet, which is the report number 2 on my list. When I open up the balance sheet, I have these pop-ups. I'm just going to click them away. My balance sheet, all balance sheets are like this. They're a snapshot as of a given date. Okay, so it doesn't matter that the top of this tells me that it's this year to date and it's saying, oh, from January to October. It doesn't matter. This money that I see, right, this $1,200, that's the money that's in my business checking account today. That's not the money that was in my business checking account just for the last 10 months. So when you look at the balance sheet, just remember that these numbers, they're just like from the beginning of time to now. It's an adding machine that never gets turned off. So a handful of things to show you. The balance sheet comes with that goofy accounting equation you might have heard or remember from school, which is assets equal liabilities plus equity. What it's telling you, or what I like to think about it, is like a teeter-totter that's always in perfect balance. On one side, I have my assets, and my assets are things like my checking account, my inventory, my company truck. And then the other side is my liabilities and my equity. And so liabilities include things like the credit card, any loans I've taken out. It's the payroll taxes that I've deducted from my employee paychecks. It's the sales tax that I've collected from my clients that I have to remit. Those are all my liabilities. And then because this has to be in perfect balance, whatever the difference is between the assets, right? My cash, my inventory, my truck, minus the liability, so minus the things I owe somebody else, equals my equity. So when you look at the balance sheet, you're going to see all these assets, and yours might be different. Like maybe you're not a landscaper, and maybe you don't have a company truck. Turns out my bookkeeping business does not have a company truck. And your liabilities, right? Maybe you don't track the bills you're going to pay. Maybe you just have them in the corner of your desk and they're not here in your QuickBooks. Maybe we're not in Arizona, but the sample file is, all this good stuff, right? Like we know your assets have to equal your liabilities plus your equity. So if you don't have any liabilities, or if your liabilities are a different number than what you see, then the software in accounting land, that difference is made up by making an adjustment in equity. When I show people the balance sheet, there's a lot of stuff going on here. And I just let people know if this is the first time you're seeing the balance sheet, that's okay. What I want you to do is get comfortable looking at it, but just realize you can close your eyes when you get to the bottom. When you get to the equity section, you can just say, that's important, and I know it's important, but I'm learning a lot right now, and I cannot take that in on top of everything else. Once you give yourself permission to just say, that's on my list of things to learn, but not today, this balance sheet becomes far less intimidating. There's nothing wrong with your balance sheet, so you're not checking it to make sure the software has done its job correctly. You're checking it to make sure you've done your job correctly. What I want you to do and what I want you to keep an eye on is just to look at it and say, are these numbers about right? So my checking account has $1,200. If I'm a person that says, no way, I was keep $10,000 in my checking account, then I know something is wrong. I don't know what's wrong and I don't know how to fix it, but I know something is wrong. I'll let you in a little secret. If there's something wrong here, then there's something wrong somewhere else. What I like about the balance sheet and why I start with this always is that if there's anything wrong, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. A $9,000 difference, like you can kind of lose that on the profit and loss over the course of a year. A $9,000 difference, when I tell you this is what's in your checking account, you're going to notice it right off the bat. So I just want you to get in the habit of looking at this. And I don't care if you're doing your books or someone else is doing your books. It takes just a second. If you recognize that there's something wrong with your balance sheet and you don't know how to fix it, that's okay. You can always ask your tax person. You can always ask your bookkeeper if you have one. You can reach out to someone like me. You can find and ask a mentor. The Small Business Development Center, the SCORE office, there's a lot of really great programs in the Seattle area where business professionals volunteer their time to mentor and assist other businesses. So it's not the sort of thing you have to spin your wheels. Like if you identify there's a problem, somebody can help you. The second thing I want you to keep an eye on is your accounts receivable. So this is the money that people owe you. So if you say, people owe me about $5,000, great. If you say that's not right, then you need to look into something. If your business has inventory, then you would have a good sense of how much inventory is in the back room. Maybe you don't know it down to the 25 cents, but you would know if it was 500 versus 5,000. Undeposited funds we're going to talk about later in the seminar, so don't worry about that for now. The truck, if you have a company truck, which again, I don't, but if you do have a company truck, this is not the Kelley Blue Book value of your truck. When you come down into the liabilities, you have a good sense of how much money you owe to other people. That's your accounts payable. If this number looks about right, then fantastic. If it looks wrong, you got to fix it. You have a good sense of how much you owe on your credit cards. You have a good sense of how much you owe in terms of loans. Where it says Arizona Department of Revenue payable, if your business collects sales tax, you might see something such as Department of Revenue or sales tax payable or anything like that. Really what you're doing with this balance sheet is you're just keeping an eye on it and you're saying, how are things going? Overall, how are things going? And once I know how things are going, do any of the numbers seem like they're wrong and I should fix something? Or they're numbers, I don't fully understand them, but here they are and they look about right. It's okay if you don't fully understand them. It takes time and practice, and seriously, you're just always going to be learning. But I really don't want you to put your head in the sand and not look at your balance sheet. So second report, and I think most of you are going to be familiar with this, it's the profit and loss. The profit and loss is also known as the income statement. Let me show you how to get to that. On the left-hand side of your screen in that gray bar, we'll click on Reports. And then Profit and Loss appears at the top in the Favorites box. We'll go ahead and click on the text Profit and Loss. The first thing I notice and find to be slightly frustrating is that this report is kind of started, it's scooted down a little bit on my screen. So to scoot up, I can just move this little gray bar to the top. Now the reason I want to move the gray bar is because I want to show you how to change the date range if you wanted to. By default, my report is set to show me this year to date, right? So January through October, here's the money, here's how things have gone. If you would like to look at a different date range, you can change it in the upper left-hand corner. You can just manually change it here. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to click on Collapse. And the reason I'm clicking on Collapse is because I want to make this easier to read. This is the sample file where Intuit shows off the awesomeness of their product. And they say, look at this. You can have accounts with sub-accounts, and those sub-accounts can have more sub-accounts. And I think the whole thing makes it really, really hard and intimidating to look at the profit and loss. So I'm specifically looking at landscape services. When I look at it, I can see there's job materials, and underneath job materials, there's like different things. I'm just going to click on Collapse, and I'm going to squish all those sub-accounts into landscape services. When you're setting up your accounting software, whether it's QuickBooks or something else, if you want to see your reports have that information with, here's detail, and then here's more detail, and here's more detail, that's no problem. It's entirely up to you. What I want to do is make this easy for you to look at so that it doesn't feel quite so overwhelming. So the profit and loss, I said before, it's also known as the income statement. The balance sheet, it's a snapshot as of a given date, right? So beginning of time through X. The profit and loss, it says as of this start date and as of this end date, here's all the income, here's all your cost of goods sold, and here's all your expenses. This is not the entire length of your business. One thing to let you know, just in case you see it on your own, this is the entire length of our landscaping business. Our landscaping business just hasn't existed for very long. The file, I think it's a rolling 6 months or something. So the fact that this says all dates, or you can say this year to date, none of that really matters because there isn't very much data here. But if you're looking at your QuickBooks, if you've had QuickBooks for a year or 2 years, the date range is going to make a difference. All right, so we're looking at the profit and loss. It's broken up into 3 sections. Section number 1 is your income. Your income is when you've sold something, so you've sold a product or a service, and somebody has bought that from you, and therefore you've collected money. That's income. Things that are not income is if you transfer a savings to checking, or in my case, if the banker Rachel has to put some money into my business, that's not income. If I go to the office supply store and I buy something and I realize I bought the wrong thing and take it and I get a refund, that's not income. The reason that I explain that is because sometimes when people are first learning accounting software, they don't know. And I really want you to be clear, income is when you've done something to earn some money. It's not every single deposit that goes in your bank account. The second part of this profit and loss statement is the cost of goods sold. So not every business has a cost of goods sold. If yours doesn't, no big deal. It's not a problem. If you're not sure if your business has a cost of goods sold, let me walk through what it is. It's the cost of the things that you bought that you later turned around and sold. So it's often called cost of goods sold, or we might shrink it down and say COGS, C-O-G-S. It literally is, it's the cost of the things. So if you think about, and this example works much better in person, one of us would have gone to Starbucks or local coffee shop on our way into an in-person event, and we would have gotten some sort of delicious beverage and possibly a snack. That company, they bought something, right? They bought the beans, they bought the donuts, they bought the whatever. And when they sold it to us, they would have sold it, say they sold it for $5, but they paid $3 to purchase it. They're going to say I had $5 worth of income and $3 worth of cost of donuts, coffee, whatever, that I sold to Rachel, $3 of cost of goods sold, and then I had a profit of $2. If you want to think about it not in terms of food that was purchased, you can also think about in the case of our landscaping service. Maybe our landscaper had to go buy grass seed, or Maybe it's a different situation. Like maybe what you're buying and selling isn't like a tangible product. Maybe you're buying someone's time. I have a bookkeeping business, right? Sometimes I need to hire another bookkeeper to help me get stuff done. So instead of being a cost of a good sold, because not really selling my friend as a good, it's cost of labor or cost of sales. So this middle section of your profit and loss is just saying, did you have to buy anything very specific that you turned around and sold to another person as part of your income? If you did, that's your cost of goods, cost of sales, cost of labor. That is not the same as your admin or your receptionist or whatever. That person is just a regular expense. They're fabulous, but they're not a cost of goods sold. So when we get to the bottom section of your profit and loss, that's your expenses. And these are all the things that you need to buy to run your business. It's your advertising, it's your office space if you have one, it's your insurance, it's your virtual admin, whatever it is that you need to buy to run your business, that goes into your expenses. So just to recap, your income is money you collect from selling a good or a service. The cost of goods sold is the cost of buying the thing if you had to buy it to turn around and sell it. Not every business has one. And then the expenses is the money that you paid out to run your business. The money you pay yourself, it might show up in the expense section, and it might show up on your balance sheet in equity. Because there's variables to describe when one happens or when the other happens, I'm not going to try to answer it in this seminar. If you're not sure if the money that you take out of your business is an expense or if it's an equity, go ahead and talk to your tax preparer or your bookkeeper, talk to your mentor, or if you have nobody else to talk to me, and I'll just spend a few minutes asking you some questions and then giving you the answer you need. When you get to the bottom of your profit and loss, it's going to tell you your net income or your net loss. This number isn't a reflection of you. This is just the number. I do want to remind you that this number represents a period in time. So this period was January through October. On the period of January through October, we collected some money and we spent some money, and here's the final number. The final number does not match our bank statement, and that's because it's a different period, right? The bank statement, my account at Any Bank USA, that started ages ago, and that I have $1,200 because of all the positives and negatives of this whole time. And there's other stuff that happens, like I put money in to start my business, I took money out because I can. When I look at the profit and loss, it's just saying from this date to this date, here's your income, here's your expenses, here's what's left over. Hopefully that explains why your bank balance will never match the number on your profit and loss. If it doesn't, if you're unclear, I just want to show you one thing. For this period, we have an income of $1,600. If I say, let me say 8/1/2020 through 8/31/2020. When I look at just the month of August, my net income is $180. Depending on the date range you pick for your profit and loss, it's always going to have fluctuation. I do want to give a quick shout out here. I recognize that I've not given you enough information to really and thoroughly understand the balance sheet and the profit and loss. If you look at this and you say, yeah, I don't get it, that's okay. What I encourage you to do, and strongly, strongly encourage you to do, is to take the workshop offered by the Seattle SCORE office called Understanding Financial Statements. I always get to it by Googling Seattle SCORE workshops. If you just look up Seattle SCORE, you get sports scores. Your alternative route is to type in seattle.score.org and then click on Take a Workshop at the top of your screen. If you scroll down on the left-hand side, you're going to see local workshops. And then if you look, this one, it's almost every month. I think it's probably 10 or 11 months out of the year that it shows up. This Understanding Financial Statements workshop is 3 or 4 hours, just deep dive into financial statements. So you come away learning a lot about it. So I really encourage you to take that if you're at all confused or uncertain about your financial statements. All right, so the last thing I want to show you is the accounts receivable. On the left-hand side of your screen, there's the word reports. We'll click on that again. At the top of your screen, there's accounts receivable aging summary. There's a handful of reports that give you similar information. I'm just going to pick this one as an example. When I click on the name, it's going to show me a list of who owes me money and how far past due are they. So I like to go to the example of Red Rock Diner. Red Rock Diner owes a total of $226. Out of that, there's $156 that's between 2 and 3 months past due. And then there's $70 that is not past due yet. If you're sending invoices to your clients and letting them pay you later, that's no problem. Just keep an eye on this so you know who to call and follow up with. If this was my business, I might say, oh my gosh, Red Rock, I need you to pay your bill. Alternatively, if you look at this and you say, Red Rock paid their bill, I don't know why this is showing up, that's the perfect chance to go to someone such as your tax person, your bookkeeper, your mentor, or someone like me and just say, this is showing up here, but they've already paid. I don't want to delete the record. I just want to fix it. No problem. It's a very, very easy fix. What I want to talk to you about next is the chart of accounts. When we looked at the profit and loss and we looked at the balance sheet, we saw all those account names. We saw the different kinds of income and we saw the different expenses and the name of our bank accounts and all that. The chart of accounts is just the master list of all those names. So let me show you how to get there. On the left-hand side of your screen, in the gray bar, if you click on accounting, then the pop-out menu to the right has two options, and we want to pick chart of accounts. The first time we do this, there's a dude with a truck. Take a peek under your hood. I'll click on the green button that says see your chart of accounts. So this brings up your chart of accounts. In case you happen to wonder about this, this is just an ad for you to upgrade to the $150 a month plan. You don't need to. I've never seen anybody exceed their their 250 account limit, and I have clients who love their detail. So without thinking, I always just click this box and then it's gone. So here's your chart of accounts. And what I want you to know is this is the listing you saw for the profit and loss and from the balance sheet. If you saw something and you said, I don't like that name, I would like it to be named differently, no problem, you can fix it. So if we take the example of your checking account, if we go to the right-hand side and click the little drop-down arrow to the right of View Register, and then select Edit. Let's rename it to Operating Checking, and then save and close. It doesn't matter what you call it. It needs to make sense to you, and it needs to make sense to your tax preparer. When you look at this list, you might see something and say, oh, I don't actually need that. I want to turn it off. That's no problem. Let me find an example of something that we can turn off with no issues. So let's say, for example, you wanted to turn off office expense, that you see the chart of accounts and you just say, I'm not going to use it anymore. We're definitely going to use office expense in the future, so this is a perfect example to show you what happens if you turn something off that you need. I'm going to click the drop down and I'm going to click on the bottom where it says Make Inactive. It says, do you want to inactivate it? I say, yep, I do. Now I want to show you what happens on the reports. So if I pop over to the profit and loss, when I come down to office expense, it just says in parentheses deleted. It does not take away any of the history we already put in the account. It just turns off the account so we can't use it in the future. I'm going to go back to the chart of accounts and show you how to turn it on. So the first thing is we can scroll down here for a long time until we find it. We can click on the word name on the left-hand side to sort this by name. That's going to take a while. Or we can search, we can say filter by name, and we can type in office. Now, because it's turned off, we don't see it in the list. Super secret way to get it back on your list is to come over here to this little tiny gear on the right-hand side, click on it and say, could you please include the inactive? And now we see office expense. We can click the button to the right to make it active. If you think of an account that is not on your list of chart of accounts and you'd like to add it, no problem. Just remember the key is it needs to make sense to you and it needs to make sense to your tax preparer. You don't have to pick the perfect verbiage, you just have to make it make sense. To add a new account, you'll click on the New in the upper right-hand corner, and you have this screen. So for example, if we said, okay, I actually have two checking accounts. I have the operating account and I have the payroll checking. You can just say, I'm going to add a new bank. I'm going to call it payroll checking. Don't worry about the rest of this. You can fill it in. You don't need to. Choose Save and Close in the lower right-hand corner. And voila. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to filter sort of by type. So now what you can see is there's the operating checking and there's the payroll checking. I want you to feel comfortable navigating the chart of accounts because this is your master list. If you see something you don't like, turn it off. If you wish you had something, add it. If you don't like the name of something and you want it to say something else so that it makes more sense to you, edit the name. This is your chart of accounts. It really needs to make sense to you. So I'm going to talk to you about the bookkeeping workflow. What you need to keep track of is the income, so the money you collect from clients for selling goods and services, your business expenses, the other money that comes and goes from your account. So oftentimes it's the bank of Rachel, or it's paying a credit card, or it's paying the sales tax, all that good stuff that isn't really an income or an expense, but it's money that goes in and out. You want to double check yourself because even though we try really hard, we're not always perfect. And then you also just want to celebrate a job well done. For the next part of this seminar, I want to show you how to do these various tasks. I'm not going to show you all ways to do all tasks. I'm just going to pick and choose a few of them so you have a sense of how things work. I am going to create a PDF guide so that you have additional step-by-step instructions for things that go beyond what I'm going to demo for you here today. So let me show you how to record a sales receipt in your QuickBooks. A sales receipt is when you want to keep track of the customer that you've sold something to and they've paid you right away. To create a sales receipt, you'll go to the left-hand side of your screen. In the upper left-hand corner, there's a plus new button. I often think of the plus new as the I want to take an action button. If you click on plus new, it's going to bring up this drop-down menu with 4 columns. On the left-hand side, under the column called customers, you'll go down to sales receipt. So it's going to bring up a form, and we're just going to say we sold something to our client called Cool Cars. On today's date, they paid us with a check. It's check number 1234. We're depositing this check into our operating checking account. And then down below, we indicate what we've sold to Cool Cars. I'm going to say we sold them concrete. We installed a fountain in their yard. We installed one fountain. It was $99. I'm going to uncheck tax because I don't want to talk about sales tax. So here it is. This is our sales receipt. This is where we're going to document that we sold something to Cool Cars. They paid us with a check. We took the check and put it into our checking account. In the lower right-hand corner, we can say save and send if we wanted to email them a receipt. We can't email the sample file, which is probably a good thing because I would send all kinds of emails to coolcars@intuit.com. So instead, I'm going to change this drop-down to say save and close. And that's it. It's just as simple as that to log income that you've received. If you're not keeping track of the clients, if you're just saying, look, I'm selling stuff for cash, or I'm using an outside service to organize all my records, and I literally just need to track the income I've received, but I'm not going to make a sales receipt every time. That's no problem. You can do that by connecting your bank to QuickBooks and just letting the data come from your bank into your QuickBooks file. And then you can say, this is landscape income, or this is, farmer's market income, or whatever the case is. And don't worry about creating sales receipts. So there's a handful of ways to log your income, and you get to pick which way makes sense for your business. You will not use all the ways. So what one business does, another business will do something different, and that's okay. Let me show you how to manually record your expenses. This is probably one of the things that you won't be doing because most of us will just log them as they come in, but I want you to know how to do it and I want you to see it in action. In the upper left-hand corner, if you click on the plus sign where it says new, on column number 2, under the column for vendors, you have 2 ways to log money spent. You can either choose expense or check. If you choose expense, you don't have a way to print out a check. If you choose check, you have a way to print out a check, but you can't log any credit card expenses there. Most of us aren't printing on check paper, so by default, I just show people how to do this using the expense form. So let's go into the expense form together. It's asking us who we paid, and so we're going to say we paid Bob's Burger Joint. We paid Bob's Burger Joint because who doesn't love a hamburger? It says payment account, and it's asking us, where is the money coming from? Does it come out of the operating checking or the payroll checking? Did it come out of the Visa or the MasterCard? Remember, if you'd pick check, you wouldn't have the option to say the money came out of the MasterCard or the Visa. One quick side note is if you're paying with your debit card, you want to pick whichever checking account that debit card is tied to. Your debit card is definitely not tied to your MasterCard or your Visa account. For this example, we'll just say we use the operating checking account. We'll say we bought these burgers today. Down here when it says payment method, this is for you. This has nothing to do with your accounting. So you can choose to type in check or you can choose not to type in check. We'll say check. Over here, there's a spot for reference number. Reference number is just that. It's just reference number. If you wanted to, you could put in your check number. We'll say 1234, 12345. Make it creative. Down below, it says category, what tax category fits. I think sometimes people find that intimidating because they don't know. And I want to reassure you and just put your mind at ease that you just want to pick the category from the chart of accounts that makes the most sense for why this money was issued. So when you look at the list, you'll say, oh, it's because this or it's because that. Don't worry about the fact that it says what tax category fits. When it's time to file your taxes, you should really look through your QuickBooks and make sure everything went into the correct buckets, right? That you picked the categories that made the most sense to you. And then you can have a conversation with your tax preparer and you can say, this is what I did. When I went to Bob's Burgers, I said, the reason I went to Bob's Burgers was because I bought some meals. I don't know if that's right or not. I'm just letting you know. In this example, because it's all make-believe, I vote that it's right. But what I really don't want you to do is get stuck and not enter in your expenses because you don't know where it goes. So pick whatever you think is right. There's a spot for a description and then there's a memo on the bottom. These are both for you. The only time I personally fill them out is if I need to put a note in here so that my tax person doesn't come back and ask me what I bought. Most of the time they can look at it and say, oh, Bob's Burgers, I know them. I know exactly what you bought. To the right of that is the amount, and you'll just say how much money did you pay. So I'll pretend that I got a burgers for $25. If you wanted to, and you don't have to, at the bottom of your screen on pretty much any of these forms that are available in QuickBooks, there's a spot for attachments. So if you wanted to, you could drag and drop your receipt into here. Once you're satisfied, you can say save and close. I wanted to show you how to do that the manual way, but I also want to let you know that you don't have to do it the manual way. As I said before, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll connect our bank account with our QuickBooks, and then when the bank says, hey QuickBooks, I noticed an expense or I noticed a charge of $25, then you as the human can say, oh right, that's money I give to Bob's Burgers for meals. No big deal. So let me show you how to do that. When you're in your QuickBooks file, on the left-hand side, if you click on Banking and then Banking again, this is going to take you to your downloaded banking transactions. Now that you're in your downloaded transactions, you have these different tiles. Blue and white boxes or gray and white boxes, they're called tiles, and they represent accounts that you've connected with your bank. So we know we have more accounts than this because we added a payroll checking account. The payroll checking doesn't show up here because we haven't yet come up here and said link account and then gone through the steps to connect the payroll checking with our bank account. Because this is a sample file, we're not actually going to connect this to any bank account. So I want you to enter the land of make-believe. Pretend that we've all connected these to our bank account. So the operating and checking, the top in the blue, it says negative 3,600. That means that Any Bank USA is much nicer to our landscaping service than my bank is to me, because I don't think my bank would let me overdraw by $3,600. Down below is $1,275, and the $1,275 represents the amount of money that we have logged into our bank. So it's not the real number, it's not what we really have, it's what we've told the software we have. So if you imagine an adding machine, we have said deposit this minus that, deposit this minus that, and the number we've come up with is $1,275. There's a chance, and in this case a definite chance, that we haven't added in all the money we spent. So therefore, QuickBooks doesn't know that we're actually overdrawn. That's why you see a difference between these two numbers. To the right of that, you see an orange 25. The orange 25 is telling you that there are 25 things that have downloaded from your bank into your QuickBooks, and they're not anywhere. They're just kind of sitting in limbo, waiting for you to do something with them. So a really easy way to think of this is when I'm online shopping, I pick out things that I might want and I put them in my cart. This is kind of like your cart. Until you check out, those things are not on their way to your house. And until I click the ad on the right-hand side of my screen here, none of these things are going to show up in my register and they're not going to show up on my reports. If I want to toggle between accounts, like this is my list of things for my checking account. If I want to say, well, what do I have to do for my savings account? I have one thing, it's this one. What do I need to do for my MasterCard? I have 7 things, it's these 7 things. That's how you toggle. Your objective when you think about like your bookkeeping to-do list is just to get these numbers down to 0. When I showed you how to manually enter an expense, that was one way to go about it. The other way is to wait for it to show up in here, for money to appear in the spent column, to fill out the empty boxes and correct the category, and then click Add on the right. It feels a little cumbersome, but it is faster than coming up here, clicking on expense, filling in the form. So I'm just going to do an example with you to show you what it looks like. This example is $1,200 to a rental. If I click anywhere on this line that is not the word add, the single line will open up to a double line. So for vendor customer, I can type in A1 rental. I know it's A1 rental because I see it down here. A1 rental is not in my list, so I'm going to add them. I'm going to add them by clicking the add at the bottom of my screen. It asks me where should this name go within my QuickBooks. A vendor is people I give money to. A customer is people who give me money. And employees are the people that help me and work on my team. So in this case, I've given money to A1 Rental. They're not a customer of mine. I'm a customer of theirs. I'm going to click Save on the right. The second thing you see is the category. QuickBooks Online is really, really bad at recommending categories. Always, always, always bad. Never trust. Okay, maybe not never, but really it's horrible at picking categories. So I want you to think to yourself, I'm the business owner, or I'm the manager, or I'm the bookkeeper, and I know why this money got spent. And I tell you what, the answer is not uncategorized expense. And so you can say, okay, it was for equipment rental. Whatever the reason is that the money was spent, you likely know the answer to that. So don't worry about QuickBooks recommending a category. It's probably the wrong category. Just, be the human and say, okay, who got the money? A1 Rental got the money. Why did they get it? Because equipment rental. Fill in the memo if you want, add a receipt if you want, and when you're happy, click add. Simple as that. If I didn't spend all that time talking, you could just look at this and say, yep, this is all correct, click add. That was substantially faster than going up to the new and entering the expense manually. But I wanted you to know how to enter the expense manually. Earlier, I showed you how to make a sales receipt, and the sales receipt was if you're tracking something you sold to a client and they paid for it right away. What if you're using an external system? For example, a doctor's office will use an external system, and they're not tracking their customers in QuickBooks. It's the fall, but imagine it was the summer. The guy at the farmer's market who sells me ice cream, they don't keep track of how many times I came over there to get a scoop of ice cream. They just, at the end of the day, they say, you know what, I sold $200 worth of ice cream in a day, and they deposit it in their bank. If that's the situation for your business, I want you to see how to take care of that. In this example, we will pretend that Books by Bessie was $55 worth of sale. So if I click on this line, again, I'm not just going to click add, and I'm not clicking add because it's uncategorized income is not the reason I got this money. What you would do is you would say, okay, who's my customer? If you know it, fantastic. And if it's a whole bunch of customers, maybe you don't enter a customer name at all. And then over to the right for category, you would pick the type of income. So maybe it's medical services income. Maybe it's farmer's market income. Whatever the case is, you'll pick the income that it is. So we'll just pick service. Quick side note, this example is not actually income, but I wanted to be able to show you something. So if you're looking at this and you're saying, but that's not right, 100% it's not right. I just really wanted an example. So we will pretend that $55 is the money we've collected for services, and that we're doing this instead of a sales receipt. You would not do this in a sales receipt. It's either or. And then you would click add. There's a lot more to it, but I just want to give you a highlight or a brief overview of how to use QuickBooks Online. So what I've shown you is how to get to the reports and how to read them, how to manually enter some income, how to enter some income using the bank feeds. I've showed you how to manually enter expenses and then how to enter expenses using bank feeds. So 2 routes to get to the same place. You'll just pick whichever one makes the most sense for you. I'm going to give you a PDF guide that has step-by-step instructions for additional tasks. Because I only have an hour, I really have to pick and choose what I teach you via this video, but it doesn't mean I can't give you more information with the PDF. I really appreciate you spending this time with me. If you have any questions, I just want to reiterate, I am available in the chat box. You can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to answer your questions, and I thank you so much.